Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a TurboGrafx 16 game, and that happens to be Chu Man Fu, or what I like to call it, Chu Man Fu. Now, when I first heard the name of this game, the first thing that came to my mind was Mr. T. I don't know why, but that just happened to be a thing, I guess. So this game is developed by Now Productions, and published by Hudson Soft, and it was released in 1990. I should also mention, this game was available on the Wii's Virtual Console, but I don't know if you can still access it, but I figure I might as well mention it. And it's an action maze kind of game. But before we get into the gameplay, let's talk about the story first. So the bad guy named Chu Man Fu decided to put a curse on the world and get rid of all the fried rice and egg rolls. Seriously? What the actual fuck? Why would he ever get rid of egg rolls? Egg rolls are fucking awesome. So the name is Heroin has to stop him, and thank God for that, because seriously, that's fucking bullshit. So you pretty much just have to bring his head to a silver platter, and that's really all about it. Yeah, nothing crazy, but it's at least funny. So now let's move on to the gameplay. So it's a top-down view in a maze, kinda like Bomberman, or another TurboGrafx 16 game that I've taken a look at before called Crater Maze. So you move around as this chick, and you have to get a bunch of balls and put them in the right spot, like matching up with each color to each color of a square. But there are plenty of enemies that you have to avoid, so you have to be really careful. But you can fend off from the enemies by kicking the ball at people, but after they die, they do respawn. There is also fruit that you get to pick up for points, but there are other items that you get to pick up that are much more useful, like a clock that can stop enemies for a moment of time. So you clear a stage by putting the balls in the right places and you get to move on to the next stage. So after clearing a stage, it just racks up your points and whatnot, but you also get diamonds, and what the diamonds are used for is that you can actually get extra lives by trading in a certain amount. And there are various amount of settings within the game, and all I have to say here is that this game is actually pretty damn long. Now, I have not beat the game myself, but I did play through a good chunk of it, and apparently from what I looked up, there is about 500 levels. Wow, now that's pretty damn insane. Thankfully, there is a password system, so at least you don't have to do this within one sitting, because that would suck. So the main game is very simple and very easy to understand, but it can be pretty challenging sometimes. But I should also mention that there is also a 2-player mode within this game. Now, I haven't played this game on 2 players, so I don't know what it's like, but I can imagine it being pretty interesting. But there is 2 extra modes within this game, one of them saying Kickball. So this mode is pretty much like soccer, and unfortunately, it's only 2 players, so if you're only playing with one person, you can just keep on scoring as many times as you want. But it is kinda cool that they do have something extra to play around with. And the last mode that they have is called Edit Mode. I'm sure you can take a guess what Edit Mode is. You can create your own levels. It's a pretty nice extra mode to have. And I have to say, I'm actually quite surprised that there's a lot of content within this game. So that's all there is to the gameplay, so now let's take a look at the controls. And I find them to be pretty good. Everything is pretty easy to understand, so obviously you move around with the D-pad, you press the 1 button to grab your balls, or I mean the balls, and you press number 2 to kick people in the gonads, or yeah, you know, you just get to kick the balls. So all that is pretty easy, although I find when you're grabbing the balls and you're trying to turn around into an intersection, it can be a little bit tough to get used to because it does feel a little bit stiff around that, but other than that, I don't have any issues whatsoever. So overall, I'd say the controls are pretty good. It's just that last thing that I mentioned could have been a little bit better, but other than that, it's pretty much fine the way it is. So let's move on to the graphics, and all I have to say about the graphics is that they're pretty bright and colorful, but they're kinda just okay. It's not like the greatest looking TurboGrafx game I ever seen, but it does look okay, and like I already said, the colors in it are nice, and the settings do change, which is a good thing. It would be pretty boring if you had to look at the same backgrounds like over and over again. And the character designs do look okay, but other than that, I don't have a whole lot to say. So now let's move on to the music. So the music in this game is also just kinda okay. Yeah, the music isn't bad, it's just nothing that memorable. But at least they are suiting to the settings and themes, which is pretty good. But other than that, there's nothing much to say, so the music is really not the greatest thing ever, but it's also not the worst thing ever. And one last thing I should mention that is kinda random is that this game is very similar to Penguin Land on the Sega Master System. So now, if you want to go and buy this game, I only saw one copy of it on eBay, well, the North American version of it, and it happened to cost $800, but that's because it's factory sealed, so yeah, I can't really make a pinpoint price considering I only found one, and that one copy is not a loose copy or a used copy or whatever. But I'm just going with my gut feeling here and just gonna say that I have a feeling that this game is probably pretty rare. At least in North America it is. If you want to get a Japanese copy, which by the way, the Japanese version of this game is called B-Ball, which has nothing to do with basketball, and that version happens to go from $8 to $30. Obviously the $30 range would be like the complete in box one, while the $8 range would be like the loose copy ones. And there's a lot of them on eBay, so at least that one is a lot more common, and it is also definitely a way better price range. At least compared to the North American one, which I don't even know what the price range of it would be because there's no other used copies. But sadly, because this game is on a Hue card, that means that all the Japanese ones are region locked, which sucks. So if you want to get a Japanese copy, you're going to have to get an actual PC Engine as well. And surprisingly, the PC Engine console itself is actually not as expensive as I thought it would be. Well, as of right now anyways. So now, if I were to rate this game, I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10. I found this game to be pretty fun, has a lot of content within it, and it's fun to play with in short bursts, and it's also pretty addicting. But I do find that this game can get pretty tiresome considering that there is like a shit ton of levels in the game, so obviously you're not gonna complete this game in one sitting unless like you're trying to break a world record or something. Okay, sorry I'm gonna be off topic here, but here's a very good idea. There should be a charity run where a bunch of people will play this game, probably on an emulator because I'm pretty sure getting enough copies to go around would be kind of a bitch to do. And the people participating will play this game for as long as they can to raise it for some kind of foundation of some sort. And there's also plenty of gaming charities to go around, such as one of them being Desert Bus for Hope. And there's also a speedrunning one, but I forget the name of that one. So anyways, let's get back on track here. So the last complaint I have is that, you know, the whole thing about turning around with the ball and trying to make sure you're putting it to the right way, that can get a little bit annoying, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And the graphics and music are just okay, but that's really about it. So other than these few things, this game is actually pretty fun. It may not be like the best maze-like game you ever play, but it's definitely a pretty addicting one. It's just a shame that the North American version just happens to be incredibly rare apparently. But thankfully there's emulators for that, or if you got this game on the Wii Virtual Console, there's also that too. But like I already said, I don't know if it's still available. And speaking of that, I really wish the Wii U had a section of TurboGrafx 16 games again, because that would just be pretty damn great. Or just make a huge compilation game of a bunch of TurboGrafx 16 games on one disc. That would also be pretty cool too. But that's just wishful thinking from me, so overall, it's pretty good and I kinda like it. So that's all I have to say about Chu Man Fu. So thank you for watching and commenting. Balls.
Balls.